Now let's head over to our API routes file and create the routes that will point to these functions so we can test them very quickly when we create them. So here I'm just going to create another group called course lectures, and that will be route controller instructor lecture controller group and function. And the first one we want to do is a post route for creating or storing a lecture. So post, and that would be C for course, sections, and lectures. And that will point to the store method in that controller. We also want a route for put. That will be C for course. For put or update, we won't really pass the section. We can just go straight to the lectures, because remember, lectures have a direct relationship with the course. In the post, we did include the lecture or the section because we have to store the lecture to a particular section. But for put and delete, we don't really need to pass a section as a route parameter. So here we can just say course, lectures, and the lecture that we want to update. And that will point to the update method. Then we need a route for delete. That will be C, course, lectures, lecture. And that should point to the destroy method. So we can go to the front end and quickly test the store method for creating a lecture before we move on to updating and deleting. So over in instructor, we have the courses, and in courses, we have the curriculum. In there, we have lectures, and let's start with create lecture. So the create lecture does take the course. So let's go to the database and grab a course ID. And again, we are using the hash IDs here. So we're going to take that hash ID, and it takes a section. So the hash ID was course ID 1. So we need a section that belongs to course ID 1. And we don't. In fact, our sections are with course ID 3. So let's go back and actually grab the ID for course with ID 3, this one. So if you go to sections, we can grab any of these sections because they all belong to that course. And let's try and send through a request to create a lecture. So introduction, so course introduction, for instance. Let's assume this is the first lecture we're creating, and the only thing we need is the title of that lecture. All right. So let's send that request, and it says undefined property title. Yes, that's because we haven't filled in the data object yet, so we don't have a title specified, or we don't have anything specified for the course lecture data yet. So in the course lecture data, actually we need the public string title and the validation. So title, want it to be required, want it to be a string, and it should have a maximum of 100 characters, and that's it. All right, let's go back and try to send that request. And we get an exception, violation of the sort order. Let's go back and see where we went wrong. So we're passing through, calculating the sort order. And here we need to add 1 to the sort order, because initially this can be null, right? You can have, when you're creating the first lesson, it doesn't have any sort order. So this can be null initially. And what we want to do is simply add 1 to whatever the max value was. So if it is null or 0, we just want to add 1 to it. So that's why we're getting the error here, because we omitted the +1. So let's go back here and just try to create a sort order or the lecture. So click, and yeah, we do get the lecture coming back with a sort order of 1. Let's just create another one, say course setting up the environment. Let's just assume that's the second lecture. And we have the sort order of 2. That's perfect. Let's create one more. And this time I want to create it in a different section. Okay. So let's pick this second section of the same course and pop that in there. Create that. And we do have that in section 4. It's also sorted with sort order of 3, and that's exactly what we want, right? So if you go back to the lectures, we should have everything sorted nicely, 1, 2, and 3, and that's perfect. Again, we do have the type set to null because at this point, we don't yet know what content type the instructor wants to put in that course. Now, while we're here, let's quickly do the update part of this process as well. And the update is pretty easy as well. So we just need to come here and do lecture equals update lecture action run. And we need to pass through the data as well as the lecture we want to update. Okay. And once we get that information back, we just return lecture resource make, and we return the lecture that has been updated. So let's go over to the action and fill it in. So this will take the course lecture data, and it will also take the lecture that we're trying to update. Then in here, we just want to return tab again, like we've done in so many cases, so that we can return the updated object. And we update with the title. So the only thing we need in the update process is the title. Now later on, we'll look at updating the sort order through a drag and drop, but for now, let's just do the basic update of the title. And so we can go to Postman. Let's grab the ID of a lecture, let's say this one, and we try to update that. So update is going to be the same URL here, except it has a lecture ID to it. So lecture will be whatever lecture ID we can grab from here. So let's pick this one. Right now the title is setting up the environment, and let's change that to setting up the environment edited. Yeah. And let's send that request. Since the resource is not found, that's because we are doing a different route here. I think the route is lectures. And let's do that again. Yeah, and now we have it updated, all right? So it seems to be working. The update and the create processes, they seem to be working. So in the next lesson, we'll quickly implement the delete operation.